Hello, Grissom Choir. This is Level 11 Music Theory Review. The main and only concept in Level 11 is diminished triad. So a diminished triad is a major triad with a lowered third as well as a lowered fifth. So a minor triad is just the lower third, whereas the diminished triad, you have to go one step further and lower the top note, the fifth interval. You have to remember, you have to always think like you're in the key of the chord that's given / the bottom note that you draw. A triad should be line, 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 or space, space, space. 1, 3, 5. We know all of this. Accidentals are always to the left of the note on a staff. It does not matter which octave you draw the triad in, so long as the notes are correct. You first have to make the major triad. Then you make it a minor triad by lowering the third, and then you make it a diminished triad by lowering that top note, the fifth. So let's take a look at this first example. The first example is A flat diminished triad. An A flat diminished triad. On this process, the first thing that you have to do is draw the triad with the given note as the bottom. So in this first example, the triad would be A, C, and E. So there's our A, there's our C, and there's our E. That is the basic triad. We have to list what flats or sharps are in the major key, that major key being the bottom note, A flat. So A flat has 4 flats in it. B flat, E flat, A flat, and then go one past it, D flat. Next, you have to continue following through with the process that we already know. We put the accidentals beside the notes that are listed in the key. So, A flat would have an A flat next to it, obviously, because the name of the key signature is A flat. And then there is also an E flat in that triad. So, A flat major triad would be A flat, C, and then E flat. We already know how to do this. The next thing that we have to do is to make it a minor triad. So we lower the third note. Lowering the third note, remember, if there is no sharp or flat next to it, it is technically a natural. So when we lower a natural, it would then become a flat. A flat, C flat, and E flat would be the minor triad. Again, we already know how to do this. The only thing that level 11 adds on is lowering the top note, which is the fifth. So to make it minor, the C would get a flat next to it, and then we would put an extra flat next to that top E flat, making an E double flat up top. This would then create A flat diminished triad, A flat, C flat, and E double flat. Let's go on to this next example together and do it. G diminished triad. So first you just draw the triad on G. So that would be G, B, D. Now you have to list the sharps that are in the key of G major. G major has 1 sharp in it, and that is F sharp. F sharp is not one of these notes that we drew, so a G major triad would be these notes, G, B, and D. To make it a minor triad, we lower that middle note, which is the third of the triad, lowering from what is technically a natural note, would be B flat. So a minor triad would be G, B flat, D. But then to make it diminished, we have to lower the top note, which is the fifth of the triad. There is no flat or sharp next to it. It's technically a natural, so we lower it, putting a flat next to it. G diminished triad would be G, B flat, D flat. Now that we've got those under our belt, go ahead and pause the video, complete these last 5 examples, and then when you're done, play it, and we'll see if you get them right. Moving on to E flat diminished triad. First, you need to draw a regular E triad. So that would be E, G, and B. Next, you have to list the flats that are in the key of E flat major. So that would be B flat, E flat, and then you got to go one past it, B flat, E flat, A flat. Now you have to list the flats that are in the key based on those notes that we drew. So an E would have a flat next to it, G would not, but B flat would. The B would. So an E flat major triad would be E flat, G, B flat. To make it minor, we lower the middle note, so we would add a flat. To make it diminished, we would lower the top note. It's already lowered, so we'd put a second flat next to it. So an E flat diminished triad would be E flat, G flat, and B double flat. C diminished. Go ahead and draw those notes on C. So it would be C, E, G. C has no sharps or no flats in it, so this right here would be a C major triad. To make it minor, we lower the third, so we'd put a flat next to G. To make it diminished, we'd lower the fifth, which is that top note, so we'd put a flat next to G. Diminished triad on C would be C, E flat, G flat. D diminished triad. Go ahead and draw that triad on D. I'm going to choose the lower D, D, F, and A. D is a sharp key, so you have to think like we're in the key of D major. So the sharps would be F sharp and C sharp, two sharps. There is only one of these sharps that we drew, and that would be F sharp, so you'd put a sharp next to it. That would be a D major triad. To make it minor, you lower that middle note, lower the third of the triad. So since it is sharped, you would actually erase the sharp. Ooh, too much. You would erase the sharp and put a natural symbol next to it, or you just simply erase the sharp. I'm going to go ahead and put a natural sign next to it. So a diminished triad based on D would be D, F natural, and A. But then we have to make a diminished triad on D. So you would lower that top note, making the diminished triad D, F natural, and A flat. G flat diminished triad. You draw that chord based on G, G, B, D. Think like we're in the key of G flat major. The flats would be B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then you have to go one past it, of course, B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat, G flat, and then C flat. You've got to put the flats next to the notes that you drew, so G flat, of course, B flat, as well as D flat. So a G flat major triad would be G flat, B flat, and D flat. To make it minor, you lower the third note. Since it's already lowered, you lower it even further. To make it diminished, you'd lower the top note, the fifth. It's already lowered, so you would lower it one more time. A G flat diminished triad would be B flat, G double flat. Oh, excuse me. A G flat diminished triad would be G flat, B double flat, and D double flat. Last example, B diminished triad. Go ahead and draw that triad on B. So you would have B, D, and F. Think like we're in the key of B major, so the sharps would be F sharp, C sharp, G sharp, and A sharp. Four sharps in B major. You gotta draw those sharps next to the notes that you drew. Only one of those would be sharp, and it would be the top note. So a B major triad would be B, D, F sharp. To make it minor, you would lower the middle note, lower the third, put a flat next to it. To make it diminished, you would lower the top note. Since that top note is a sharp, you would erase the sharp, and I would go ahead and put a natural symbol next to it. A B diminished triad would be B, D flat, and F natural. That is everything on music theory level 11. You really need to know level 6, level 9, and of course level 10 in order to successfully do level 11. If you are good on those 3 levels, this should make a lot of sense, and it should be a piece of cake for you.